What if the greatest lie ever told wasn't that you were powerless, but that your power never existed in the first place? From the moment you entered this world, you were handed a script. Follow the rules. Believe what you're told. Stay inside the lines. Spirituality, they said, lives in temples, books, robes, and rituals. History, they said, is linear. Science, they said, is cold, hard fact. And everything that came before, well, that was just myth. Primitive people worshiping the sun, chasing gods they imagined in the sky. But what if that wasn't true? What if the ancients weren't lost, but enlightened? What if everything they tried to erase was never myth, but memory, your memory? And what if the most powerful spiritual system in history wasn't destroyed because it was false, but because it was too real to control? Hermeticism isn't some obscure footnote in an old textbook. It's not a mystical curiosity for eccentric philosophers or a niche interest for history buffs. Hermeticism is a blueprint for reality itself, an ancient system of wisdom so potent, so liberating, that it had to be buried under centuries of dogma, distraction, and distortion. Not to protect you, but to protect those who gain power from your ignorance. Before religion, before science, before the internet and empires and institutions, there was Hermeticism. Born in the temples of Kemet, what we now call Egypt, Hermeticism was not just a belief system. It was a way of seeing, a way of being, a total framework that united astronomy, medicine, geometry, psychology, and spirit into one living, breathing understanding of existence. The pre-scientists of these temples weren't worshiping the stars, they were studying them, not just to navigate the sky, but to map the human soul, because they understood something we've forgotten. The universe and the self are mirrors. This knowledge wasn't hidden because it was flawed. It was hidden because it worked. Because Hermeticism taught that divinity isn't something outside you, it's something within you. That you don't need priests or politicians or prophets to reach it. That you are not broken. That you were never meant to obey. You were meant to awaken. And that is a threat. As power consolidated in the hands of a few, Hermetic teachings were labeled heresy. When the Roman Empire expanded, when early Christianity sought to unify belief under a single doctrine, Hermetic texts were burned, banned, buried. The teachings that once helped initiates awaken to the divine within were turned into superstition. Stories meant to liberate the human mind were reduced to myths. And over generations, the memory of this wisdom faded, at least for the masses. But behind closed doors, the elite never stopped studying it. While the public was taught that alchemy was a failed science, a silly attempt to turn lead into gold, people like Isaac Newton quietly filled notebooks with more writings on Hermetic alchemy than on gravity. Enlightenment thinkers wore powdered wigs by day and studied ancient symbols by candlelight, because they knew that real alchemy wasn't about metal. It was about transformation, not of elements, but of consciousness. Every stage of Hermetic alchemy is a metaphor for the journey you're already on. You, the lead, heavy, unrefined, weighed down by fear, shame, and programming. You, the fire, burning, dissolving, breaking apart what's false. You, the gold, emerging, radiant, whole. This is the work Hermeticism reveals. The great work. A process of psychological and spiritual metamorphosis so powerful, it was hidden in symbols, stories, and secrecy, because if everyone understood it, no one could be controlled. Think about that. The reason you were taught to laugh at ancient mystics wasn't because their ideas were primitive, but because their ideas were powerful. They knew that reality is not fixed, that consciousness is not a side effect of biology, it is the source of it, that the mind doesn't exist within the world exists within the mind. This is the principle of mentalism, the foundation of Hermetic philosophy. And it's not a metaphor. It's a literal statement about how reality functions. Everything you perceive, everything you think is out there, is actually a filtered interpretation constructed by your consciousness. What you believe, you see. What you focus on, expands. What you accept as truth becomes the lens through which you experience existence. And here's where it gets chilling. Because if you don't control that lens, someone else will. Since the moment you learned to speak, the programming began. Every book, every commercial, every social cue taught you what to want, what to fear, what to believe. Media doesn't sell products, it sells reality. Advertising doesn't just push desires, it installs them. Governments, brands, ideologies, they've all studied what you were told was superstition. They've weaponized hermetic principles to manipulate your perception, hijack your attention, and shape your behavior. Not by force, but by suggestion. And if you think that sounds conspiratorial, ask yourself, why do these techniques work so well? Because they were never invented. They were rediscovered. Hermeticism teaches that symbols are the language of the unconscious, that the mind responds not just to logic, but to metaphor, story, and image. And those who understood this could create illusions so convincing, people would live entire lives inside them, never questioning, never remembering. You've seen hermetic symbols before. The all-seeing eye, the caduceus, the Ouroboros. You've heard the echoes in phrases like, as above, so below. You felt the resonance in movies about chosen ones, magical awakenings, hidden knowledge. These aren't random motifs. They're fingerprints, clues from a system that's been whispering to you through time. Because even when the teachings were outlawed, the symbols survived. They slipped into stained glass windows, into tarot decks, into cathedrals, architecture, pop culture. Not because the system forgot them, but because some part of you remembered. That itch you feel, that restless hunger, that sense that there's more to this life than what you've been told. That's not imagination. That's memory. Soul-deep memory of what you came here to do, to awaken, to transform, to reclaim your birthright. You are not here to obey. You are not here to consume. You are not here to play small. You are here to become. And the alchemical path of Hermeticism is not about escaping the world. It's about engaging it, transmuting it, rising within it as something sovereign, whole, and radiant. You are the experiment. You are the furnace. You are the philosopher's stone. And if that truth was hidden from you, it wasn't by accident. They didn't just forget to teach you Hermeticism. They made sure you'd never find it. They replaced it with systems that demanded faith, not inquiry. Obedience, not awareness. Worship, not wisdom. But you're here now. You've started to remember. You don't need a robe or a ritual to begin the great work. You don't need permission. The transformation is already underway. Every breakdown you've faced, every identity you've shed, every belief that's cracked and crumbled under the weight of your own awakening, that was alchemy. That was you, burning off the false layers, dissolving the programming, refining the truth. It's not always pretty. Sometimes it feels like death, because in a way, it is. The death of the old self, the sleepwalker, the one who forgot. But on the other side of that death is light. Not the light they sold you, not a distant, conditional heaven, but a light that burns from within, undeniable, divine, free. They can't control someone who's done the great work. They can't sell illusions to someone who's seen through them. They can't cage someone who remembers they were never small. This is the path Hermeticism offers, not salvation, but sovereignty. Not belief, but knowing. Not escape, but embodiment. The power is not coming. It's not somewhere out there. It's you, and it always has been. If the world is mental and everything begins in the mind, then reclaiming your mind isn't just a nice idea. It's a radical act. It's not about pretending everything's fine or slapping on fake positivity like a bandage over a bullet wound. It's about recognizing that thought, belief, and attention are the building blocks of reality. These aren't abstract concepts, they're active forces. And if you learn to wield them deliberately, you stop merely reacting to the world and start reshaping it. You stop being a puppet and you start becoming the author. That's why Hermeticism wasn't erased from history because it was nonsense. It was hidden because it was power. Real power. Not the kind you seize with force, but the kind you cultivate within. The kind that makes you dangerous, not to others, but to systems built on your compliance. When you understand that your inner world creates your outer experience, the game changes. You stop trying to fix the external and start tuning the internal. You stop swinging at shadows and start tending to the source. You stop looking outward for saviors and you start becoming your own. And that shift, that awakening, it's terrifying to those who benefit from your sleep. Because a person who reclaims their mind can't be easily controlled. You stop getting hooked by fear-based narratives. You see through the illusion of authority. You realize no external system has power over you unless you grant it power in your imagination. The real prison was never the world. It was your own unexamined thoughts. The keys were never lost. They were hidden in plain sight. And now you found them. Your thoughts aren't passengers, they're pilots. Your attention isn't disposable, it's sacred. Your beliefs aren't carved in stone, they're programmable. And once you see that, really see it, you take your first real step toward freedom. Not the kind of freedom sold in slogans or waved on flags, but the kind that begins with mastery of the self. You weren't handed a manual for how reality works, you were handed rules. Unquestioned, unchallenged, handed down like holy commandments. Obey this. Don't ask that. Stay in line. But Hermeticism doesn't hand you rules. It gives you tools, principles, patterns, not beliefs to memorize, but mechanics to master. It doesn't demand submission, it invites exploration. It doesn't tell you what to think, it shows you how reality functions, so you can think for yourself. These teachings weren't airy philosophical speculations, they were precise insights into the architecture of reality. And those insights were so potent, so liberating, they had to be buried. Not because they were wrong, but because they made you harder to control. That's the secret. The knowledge wasn't lost, it was repackaged, dismantled, weaponized, turned into systems of distraction, division, and distortion. While you were taught to laugh at the ancient mysteries, to fear the esoteric, to label anything spiritual as woo, the powerful were studying these very ideas in silence. Not to help humanity ascend, but to tighten their grip on its perception. They didn't need to keep the truth locked away in vaults. They just had to convince you it was dangerous, laughable, or irrelevant. They trained you to reject it before you ever encountered it. That's how deep the programming goes. You were taught to ignore your intuition, to silence your inner voice, to scoff at synchronicities and chalk up every spiritual insight as overthinking. And in doing so, you became your own gatekeeper. You stopped exploring. You stopped questioning. You mistook complexity for confusion and mystery for madness. All by design. Because once you internalize the Hermetic principles, not just intellectually, but viscerally, something incredible happens. You become unshakable. You stop being shaped by reality and start shaping it. That's what they feared. Not chaos, but sovereignty. Not rebellion, but remembrance. They didn't slander Hermeticism because it was weak. They demonized it because it was strong, because it offered a blueprint for human potential beyond systems, beyond dogma, beyond fear. They called it evil to keep you away from your own power. But here's the twist. While they told you to stay away from symbols, from the occult, from the mystery traditions, they never really explained why. They just made it all sound dark, dangerous, forbidden. And when someone hides knowledge that aggressively, you can bet it isn't because it's useless. It's because it's real. The kind of real that sets you free. The Renaissance wasn't a happy accident. It was ignited by Hermetic texts smuggled out of burned libraries and hidden vaults. Thinkers like Giordano Bruno, Marsilio Ficino, and Pico della Mirandola weren't just playing with ancient ideas. They were unlocking the deeper mechanics of consciousness. They didn't see humans as fallen, sinful beings. They saw us as divine expressions, capable of aligning with the cosmic mind. For that, Bruno was burned at the stake. But you can't kill a current of truth. You can only drive it underground. And that's what happened. Hermeticism flowed beneath the surface, passed in secret through symbols and metaphor, hidden within secret societies and esoteric schools. Not all of them stayed true to the original spirit, but many kept the flame alive. The Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, the Golden Dawn, these weren't cults. They were vessels, containers for knowledge that couldn't be spoken in the open. And though the symbols may have become diluted over time, their essence still lingers. Look around you. The symbols are everywhere. The all-seeing eye. The pyramid. The checkerboard floors. The twin pillars. These aren't decorative. They're signatures. Echoes of Hermetic wisdom etched into architecture, entertainment, and ritual. Walk through Washington, D.C., and you'll see a city laid out in Hermetic geometry. Look at corporate logos, elite institutions, ancient cathedrals. It's all there. Not because it looks cool, because it encodes something. A message, a claim, a quiet flex from those who never forgot. Even Hollywood, with all its spectacle and glamour, drips with these symbols. But not to enlighten you, to distort, to distract, to desensitize. They serve you the form and strip out the meaning. They give you echoes, but erase the essence. They turn truth into fiction, initiation into spectacle, and sacred insight into superhero scripts. Because if you ever truly saw the code, you'd wake up. And if you woke up, you'd stop playing the game by the rules they taught you. So they didn't destroy Hermeticism. They buried it, twisted it, repurposed it. Mentalism became marketing. Vibration became entertainment. Polarity became division. Rhythm became distraction. Cause and effect became propaganda. Gender became identity politics. The principles were never erased. They were flipped. Used not to set you free, but to manage your perception, to engineer your consent. Because the truth is, power doesn't fear mysticism. It fears clarity. It fears people who remember who they are, who understand that they're not victims of reality, they're co-creators of it. That's what Hermeticism teaches. Not dogma, not superstition, but alignment, intention, mastery. It doesn't ask you to believe blindly. It invites you to observe deeply. It doesn't shame your desire. It teaches you to refine it, to aim it, to let it guide you toward what your soul already knows. But you weren't given those tools. You were given doubt. You were told to play small. That wanting more made you selfish. That questioning made you rebellious. And that rebellion made you dangerous. But the only danger was to the system, not to your soul. You were taught that discomfort means stop. That failure means you're broken. That if your reality isn't working, it's your fault. But what if it's not broken? What if it's coded? What if every limitation you think is yours was programmed there to keep you obedient? What if your fear of power wasn't natural, but installed. Every time you silenced your truth to stay safe. Every time you ignored your gut to be logical. Every time you felt a spark of something deeper and buried it to be normal. You reinforced the trap. But now you're seeing it. The illusion. The architecture. The code. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to understand why your life cycles the way it does. Why certain people keep showing up. Why your habits, your health, your career, they all mirror your beliefs. You begin to see that the universe isn't random, it's responsive. This isn't chaos. It's code. And you were meant to learn how to read it. The Hermetic principles aren't some outdated mystic relic. They are the physics of consciousness. They aren't commandments from above. They are truths etched into the blueprint of existence. When you internalize them, you don't just survive this world. You collaborate with it. You don't just exist by default. You live by design. That's what they tried to keep from you. But you're remembering now. And that changes everything. You're not reinforcing the bars because you're weak. You're doing it because the system trained you to fear your own mind. It conditioned you to question your inner knowing, to second-guess the voice that's always been whispering truth beneath the noise. It taught you to prioritize safety over authenticity, to choose approval over alignment. And the worst part? You probably didn't even notice when it started. You didn't sign up for it. It was embedded, downloaded into your consciousness before you were even aware there was a choice. Even now, a part of you might feel uneasy. Is this too intense? Too dramatic? But that voice isn't your true self. It's the ghost of programming, the residue of a system that thrives when you doubt your power. That hesitation? That's not you. That's the echo of inherited limitation, still trying to keep you in the box. You've been trained to live within boundaries you didn't build, to survive in a reality you didn't consciously create. And this is the breaking point. The moment of recognition. Because once you see the cage, you can't unsee it. Once you realize you've been conditioned to build your own prison, to lay the bricks with every small self-betrayal, every suppressed truth, every abandoned dream, you're faced with a choice. Continue pretending or wake up and begin tearing it down. Hermeticism isn't here to soothe you. It's not some trendy escape from the world. It doesn't offer comfort. It offers clarity. It says, yes, the universe is mental, but not in the abstract way people quote to sound wise. It means you are the architect. Every thought, belief, fear, and expectation, it all shapes what you experience. Your reality isn't some static thing that happens to you. It's a mirror, a reflection, a projection of your inner state. Nothing changes out there until you shift in here. That's where the real work begins. Not in rituals, not in symbols, not in sacred texts. Those are tools, not the path. The path is you. It starts in silence, in honesty, in asking hard questions. When did I abandon myself to belong? When did I replace my voice with someone else's narrative? When did I stop trusting my intuition? Your mind isn't broken, it's been hijacked. You don't need to become someone new. You need to remember who you were before the world taught you to forget. That's what awakening is. Not a sudden lightning strike of knowledge, but a slow, steady remembering. A tug at the edge of your awareness. Something you've always known but couldn't quite explain. It's not a new idea, it's an ancient knowing, one that's been buried under conditioning and noise. And now, finally, it's rising. Hermeticism was never meant to impress you, it was meant to awaken you. It's not about accumulating more ideas, it's about peeling back illusion. When you begin to embody the Hermetic self, you're not adding anything. You're activating what was always within. The spark, the divine mind, the infinite intelligence that flows through everything, including you. Mentalism stops being a theory and becomes a mirror. You start to see how your thoughts shape your emotions and how those emotions ripple out, becoming the energy that molds your life. You feel it, the hum of creation beneath everything. You realize you are no longer a passive participant, you are the source code. And then the shift begins. You stop blaming. You stop outsourcing your power. You stop looking for answers in systems designed to keep you compliant. Instead, you start tuning in. You begin to feel that sacred hum of choice, of alignment, of creation. As within, so without ceases to be a nice phrase. It becomes a compass. You begin to feel it. You notice how your inner state, your thoughts, your focus, your beliefs create feedback in your external world. You realize you are not a victim of rhythm. You are a rider of it. Polarity stops being something to fear and becomes a tool for perspective. You understand that your masculine and feminine energies are not roles, not genders. They are forces of creation, action and receptivity, structure and flow, assertiveness and surrender. These are the levers of reality, and you hold them. Suddenly, life stops happening to you. It starts happening through you. It starts subtle. You react less. You observe more. You become aware of how much of your life has been dictated by unexamined beliefs. You recognize the loops, those repeating patterns, stories, emotional spirals, and you trace them back. You see where they began. A moment, a teacher, a parent, a wound. And now, with awareness, you choose to rewrite the script. When you're aligned, everything flows. When you're out of sync, everything resists. So you stop blaming the current. You start learning how to adjust your sail. You become responsible for your vibration, not from guilt, but from power. You don't control everything. You influence everything. And that changes everything. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up again and again as the conscious creator of your reality. You become more intentional, sharper, more grounded. You stop floating in abstract ideas and start embodying the truth. You stop seeking validation and start radiating alignment. People feel it. Even if they can't name it, they feel the difference. Contrast no longer shakes you, it teaches you. You don't fight polarity, you use it. You ride rhythm instead of drowning in it. You stop resisting the laws, you partner with them. Slowly but surely, the inner flame they tried to smother flickers back to life, and then begins to burn steady. But make no mistake, awakening disrupts the system, both the external one and the one inside you. Old stories won't die easy. Comfort zones will whisper. Familiar pain will tempt you to go back to sleep. But once you've touched the truth, once you've remembered who you are, there's no going back. Illusion starts to taste hollow. False safety starts to feel like a prison. You begin to take your energy seriously. Your attention becomes sacred. Your time becomes something you invest, not spend. You treat your mind like a temple, not a dumping ground for other people's projections. You stop letting culture dictate your worth and start building a life that resonates. And then, without even trying, you begin the great work, not as a concept, but as a way of being. You embody Hermeticism. You live the principles. Mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender. These aren't abstract ideas anymore. They're maps, tools, invitations to live in alignment with the fabric of reality. You apply them, not like a checklist, but like a symphony. You become the instrument and the conductor. And that's when you remember, you're not here to chase enlightenment. You're here to be awake. You are the philosopher's stone. You're not searching for it, you are it. Every choice you make from awareness is alchemy. Every moment you return to presence is transmutation. Every time you choose love over fear, clarity over chaos, embodiment over escape, you're doing the real magic. Most people will scroll past this. They'll keep chasing shiny ideas while ignoring their own reflection. But a few, maybe you, will feel the deeper pull, the remembering. And those are the ones who begin the return. Not to a belief system, but to the self. Hermeticism was never about secrecy. It was about sovereignty. It was never about worshiping the flame. It was about becoming it. About knowing how reality works, not to escape it, but to engage with it as a conscious participant. And here you are, standing at the edge of that remembering. You were handed an operating system at birth, filled with fear, shame, obedience, scarcity. You didn't choose it. But now that you know it's not you, you're free to rewrite it. You stop asking life to change. You start coding it from within. You surround yourself with conversations that expand, practices that ground, inputs that nourish. You don't borrow rituals, you build ones that resonate. Meditation becomes awareness. Journaling becomes alchemy. Movement becomes medicine. You honor your rhythm, your cycles, your intuition. You don't need robes or titles or permission. You just need presence, honesty, courage. You are not here to fight the old world. You are here to embody the new one. You don't need to start a movement. You are the movement. Every time you choose alignment over autopilot, you're shifting the collective code. Every time you speak truth, live awake, create from love, you're rewriting reality. You don't need a temple. Your life is the temple. Your thoughts, your choices, your energy, that's the ritual. And that's what makes you powerful. Because the most dangerous thing to a system built on fear is someone who is no longer afraid. Someone who sees through the illusion and still chooses to live with love, with clarity, with purpose. Awakening isn't the end. It's a rhythm. You'll forget. You'll return. You'll fall asleep and wake up again. That's okay. The path isn't perfection. The path is return. And each time you return, you come back more whole, more honest, more alive. You're not here to live someone else's script. You're here to write your own. And this is where the writing begins.